you're gonna look great.
But if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the
GymWits, GymWits.
That's right, man. You tell 'em. Welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits. So I hope that this episode gets out in time because when it releases, I'll be on vacation. I will not be, I'll be in Lisbon at that point.
Oh,
Lisbon
awesome.
and Barcelona.
Very nice.
So it'll be nice. A much needed vacation.
I'm sure. It's good to get out. You know, I've gotten a bunch of parking tickets recently. 2 of them were legitimate, either the meter, well, sort of. The meter had expired, or one time I forgot that I had parked an alternate side. But yesterday I got perhaps the most annoying BS ticket I've ever gotten.
And what happened?
I got a ticket for mutilated registration sticker.
What does that mean? I don't drive, so.
There's a sticker that you put.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And the guy just said it was mutilated, like it was messed up.
Was it messed up?
No. It was fine. The tape might have been hanging off a tiny bit, but you could read all the information. It was really easy. And
When that was yesterday? Was that the
Yeah.
Was it him just trying to reach a quota or something? That doesn't make sense. It's really weird.
Um,
Or is that a normal thing?
Well, I don't know if it was the same guy, but he was at my car, and I ran up there just as I was supposed to put money in the meter.
Yeah.
And maybe he was pissed that I got there in time. I didn't say anything to him, but maybe he was just pissed that he missed that ticket, so he was trying to find something. Or there were just people walking up and down. They were just trying to find a reason to give a ticket.
So I'm guessing you wanted to vent because I thought you were going to somehow tie this to my vacation. Because I mentioned I was going on vacation and then you went right into the story. So I thought there was a weird.
There is.
Oh, okay.
What's
the connection?
And it's nice to get out of New York,
Okay, good.
where you're not dealing with this. We're not dealing with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. It is.
Right. You're out. You have you're away and just far away. I don't know if this happens everywhere. I mean, I know you don't drive, so you don't have to worry about it. But it's just not. It's like, to me, it's just all wrapped up in the same. It's the cost of living in New York. But it's just nice to get away. You have to get away from New York. It's like it pulls you back when you're away for too long, but you got to get away. So it'll be nice. I think I might go away somewhere next week as well.
Where?
I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, cool.
I like that concept of just being able to pick up and go somewhere.
Just up and leave. Yep. Well, it's the benefit of being a trainer is I'm not tied to. Although I don't make money when I'm away.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So that's the good and bad, I guess. So anyway, before we get to our main topic, I've got some, I guess for this week, the interesting study. So there was a study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine, basically about weight loss programs and that incorporate a maintenance program. So the idea is that a weight loss program that incorporates maintenance kind of intervention.
What is maintenance?
Well, once you reach your goal weight, maintaining your weight,
maintaining your goal weight.
So that an kind of almost an active intervention will help you be more successful. And just thinking about it, it kind of makes sense because most people gain weight back. This article cites some studies that say that most people regain an average of 2 to 4 pounds a year after weight loss. So again, I don't know exactly what the stats are, but most people do gain weight after weight loss. We see it all the time. There's numbers of studies. Don't know the exact numbers, but this says 2 to 4. We'll go with that. But so part of the problem is, and we've talked about it before, is we often focus on what the goal is, but a lot of times we lose sight of the process to get there. So we take a route that maybe is unrealistic or unsustainable to get there. But then we also don't focus on what you do once you get there. Yep. So a lot of times maintenance really isn't built into a program, or it's kind of given, kind of passing discussion because like maintenance isn't sexy.
It's not sexy at all.
Though the actual weight loss is the sexy part, and but keeping it off, we don't talk about it. So,
modern society,
and that's the problem is that when you for most of these crash diets or any kind of diet, it's unrealistic to sustain for the rest of your life.
Well, think about this. Well, just as to, and everyone out there who's wondering, well, I know that the goal seems sexy, and why isn't maintenance, why is that so not thought of? Well, like, just think about everything that we experience in life, right? Any movie, when the movie was over, when the good guy wins, it's over. Right, unless they start making, they try to drum up the sequels. Yeah. Right, when you're in school, you graduate, You graduate. That's it. Now, yeah, you're gonna have to go on somewhere else, but you graduate. You're done with school.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't have to think about it anymore. If you're in a league team sport, if you win the championship, you win.
Yeah.
That's it. You win, and then next year you can go for it again. Right. So there's this finality with so many things in life. You know, stories when a book ends, just anything like that. But it's funny that with exercise and fitness, it doesn't work that way until you stop breathing. So it's just trying to apply all these things in entertainment and just in life that we experience, but it doesn't apply to fitness because we've seen so many people reach their quote unquote goal weight only to gain it all back again and then have to go through the process. And in fact, it's what the fitness industry thrives on. Why would they want to push maintenance as something that's important? They don't want people to maintain because they want them to keep coming back.
I would say
for more products and more services.
So what I would say is I don't know that like they're we sometimes talk about the fitness industry like they're a bunch of evil guys in like in a boardroom making all these like kind of decisions.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
So I don't think that there's a marketing director at some
No, I think there is. I think there is. Like, why would you? Okay. But I could totally see people in a room. They're saying, well, let's talk about the maintenance phase of this. And then people saying, why would we want people to maintain? We want them to keep coming back.
Okay, so I don't.
Or if we want, when we release our next product.
I will say that I don't think that there's marketing directors in a boardroom in these discussions saying, you know what, screw the maintenance program. Let's let them keep coming back. Now, I'm not saying that they're talking about it because it's not necessary, but I don't think that they're actively trying not to. But a natural consequence of the fast result is that rebounding effect. So, the consequence is if you sell something that's going to get you fast results, that actually does work. It's something unsustainable, and so the rebounding effect is going to be that you gain the weight back. Sure. So yeah, I just think that they enhance their focus on the fast result, but they don't focus on the parts that
result. It doesn't even have to be fast. It just once you have your results. I know that generally products advertise fast results because that's what.
Well, again,
wants.
that's what you're going to go for. If someone tells you you're going to lose, you can lose 50 pounds in a month versus losing 50 pounds in 2 years, you're going to go with the month.
With the month,
right?
Of course.
So,
but generally speaking, even if someone knows that the fast results are not the sustainable way and are not the best way, and they're willing to go the long route, they're still not thinking about the maintenance phase after they've reached that.
Or I've heard people say, I'm going to do this extreme diet. Then I'll just focus on maintenance. They'll say I'll focus on maintenance, but they don't know what maintenance means. So basically, to get to the study, we could record the whole podcast on this now.
Sure.
So basically, they took a group of obese patients. So 16, they basically on average lost 16 pounds over 16 weeks in a group weight loss program. They were then split up into two groups. So there was an intervention group and a normal group. So the normal group you can think of as your normal weight loss people. So they've got to do their own work, own research, and figure out how to maintain the weight. And then the intervention group, they'd had group sessions, which then eventually turned into phone calls where they had interventions with people who could help them, kind of help guide them along the way and what to do as far as maintenance is concerned. So basically, after 54 weeks, the intervention group gained 1.5 pounds.
Okay.
The normal group gained on average 5 pounds. So again, obviously it's one study, but it's fairly common.
It's a very telling
makes
study,
sense
and I think shows what generally goes on.
What I'm wondering, so I think there's a couple of interesting parts to that. It's that one is part of exercise and fitness is everyone's trying to do it, but not many people are experts in it, but we all have to do it, but it's like if you want to play guitar or I get into 3D printing, not that I'm an expert in that, but I have to do so much research and learn so much that you have to really want to do it. Yeah. When it comes to, you play music, let's say you were learning a new instrument, you have to actively research and learn and study and work to get it. Yeah. For exercise and fitness, it's very much the same.
Absolutely.
But there's a kind of disconnect because it's part of us. We have to do it, But then the amount of research and work that goes into it, it's daunting. So just as like if I want to learn how to play the guitar and I don't have time to really put into it, somebody who wants to maintain the weight loss, they may not be able to put the work in or may not have the time or the energy to put into it. So it's easy to rebound and start gaining. So by having that intervention, by having somebody who can help you develop those skills, it makes sense that, you can, if you have a question, if I have a question on whether I should eat X, sweet potatoes or mashed potatoes, I may, for various reasons, not know what's better than the other. And if it's just me making my own decisions, I might look it up, or I might just say, oh, whatever, mashed potatoes might be fine. Versus if you have the guy to talk to or the woman to talk to, they'll be able to give you the right information.
I also think that when you have someone to talk to, it provides a little bit of motivation that you might know that eating mashed potatoes, with tons of
butter,
cream, butter, and all that stuff, as opposed to a baked
sweet
potato with maybe a little bit of butter or oil.
Why do you have to add that? Why can't you just have the baked sweet potato?
Yeah, because most people aren't. Most people are going to want a little something on it. But there's a huge difference between mashed potatoes that have a ton of butter and cream and cheese and sour cream, as opposed to a sweet potato with a little smear of butter, or olive oil. Yeah. There's a huge difference, and I think most people would tell you that. Well, I know that eating the sweet potato would be better, but I'm just, sort of out of sight. It's okay. I'm just going to eat it this time. Yeah. But if you're speaking with someone, right, even if you know the answer to the question, just them talking about it makes it more sort of relevant in your mind and gives you the motivation to make the right choice. Yeah. So even on that front, I think that sometimes people do know the right answers. They just don't want to accept the right answers. Yeah. So when they speak to someone, it also helps them execute what they already know.
And it keeps things in the forefront of your mind. Again, the more that you can keep it prevalent and there, the easier it is to kind of distance yourself and pretend that you're it's not there. So I just thought it was interesting. I think that's an opening maybe for fitness facilities and for fitness companies to add that type of programming where you're offering maintenance programming, you're offering whether it's a call-in service, hey, here's an idea, take my idea, take the idea, but like some kind of a service that is added on to or you don't have to add, it's just part of your programming where you give your members a chance to communicate with a professional that can kind of help guide you or help you make the right choices. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. So anyway, on to today's discussion. So today's discussion is on my favorite exercises. This is not researched. I didn't do any, study. We're not looking at any studies or anything. This is just based on my own experience, personally from years of training and myself and training other clients. I always get asked the question like, what's the best exercise for this body part? Or what's the best exercise for that? So I thought we'll kind of go through the body parts or areas and say, okay, this is what I think this is what my favorite exercise for it. And maybe I'll give you a little bit of reasons why. But, and then what we'll do is if you have the GymWits app, if you download the app, I'll include all these exercises in a PDF. So if you have the app on iTunes or Android, just go into the app. There will be a section where you can see in the podcast, it should say, I think, add-ons or extras. And you can then download the add-on, which will have the different exercises that will be included.
So does this mean the exercise and all its variations or just literally that one exercise?
It depends. I'm fairly loose.
We don't have to be
I don't want to spend too much time on each one because we're going to go through each area, but we don't have to talk about all the different variations, just kind of a little bit on what and why, and then we'll post. And just mainly this is kind of one of those things where people ask me, so I figured we'll go through it.
I often get asked those questions as well.
Yeah.
So all right, what about the chest?
All right, my favorite chest exercise is a cable fly.
I knew you were going to say that.
I feel like with the chest, it's really easy to over-rely on the triceps and the shoulders to produce the movement. And if you want to really isolate the chest, I think the cable fly is the best thing because you got the cables, you have the resistance from the cables, so it's also not as kind of unwieldy as doing dumbbells. You've got more of a constant resistance with the cables. You could do it standing up, so the positioning is a little bit easier, especially at the bottom of the range where you're, when you're doing it on a bench, if you're doing it with dumbbells, it can be a little bit difficult. Being able to stand with the cables or sit with the cables. It positionally puts you in a spot where you can really focus mostly on the chest, and really is the best way to. It allows you to isolate the chest in a way that most exercise don't allow you to. How do you know it was mine?
Because you've mentioned it before. I knew that you like that. You actually mentioned in previous episodes how much you like that exercise. Yeah. And it's a really solid exercise
for isolating. So it's not the most functional movement in the world, but again, we're just talking like what's good for what's going to help develop the muscles. So we're not really going to focus too much on like functional or non-functional movements in this episode. So we're just kind of going body part by body part.
I personally like the bench press. I'm going to go simple. I feel like you get good at it. You can push a lot of weight. And that while yes, it's good for it's good for the other body, triceps and stuff like that. I feel it's just when I'm doing heavy bench press, I just develop my chest and I just get really strong there. I think that it really helps get strong chest. Yeah. So when you start doing heavy bench presses, you can use a spotter with it to help you get the extra weight up, and it feels good. Like when you can bench press, it's just it's a classic exercise, and that's just one of my favorites.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, so let's talk about the lats.
All right, so lats are a criminally underrated, I guess, body part.
Yeah.
They don't work them as much and won't work them as dynamically as they should be. So basically, lats do a lot. It connects to the shoulders, and it does it assists in a lot of different types of movements, and different ranges of motion. And it's a little tricky because this one I could easily come up with 4-5 exercises that would all be my favorite, but I'm gonna go with pull-ups mainly because pull-ups are just such a great exercise that I want to include them somewhere here. But obviously pull-ups requires a lot more than just the lats. You're using it in the biceps, a little bit the back of the shoulders. It's a lot of control. It's stability in the scapula. So there's a lot going on for pull-ups that's more than just the lats. But I'm going to go with pull-ups for the lats. There could be 5 or 6 exercises that all work because it's such a dynamic body part or muscle that it really does a lot of work.
Yeah, for me, pull-ups are one of my favorite overall exercises. For me, for the lats, my favorite is the row, the upright row. Yeah. The lat pull down is not my favorite.
Upright row?
Not the standing upright row. That's for the shoulders. Yeah. Just the straight row, seated row. Yeah, seated cable row.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. Seated row is great. You can move a lot of weight. Again, the positioning allows you to kind of fix yourself in a way that you can really pull a lot of weight. And one of the best exercises if you just want to kind of load up the plates.
Yeah. That's one of those.
And pull.
All right. Biceps.
All right. So biceps, similar to the lats. So obviously biceps, we think of it more as like a muscle that is very isolated. You do one thing, you flex. But biceps do a few different things. So it supinates. So if you start with your palm, kind of, let's say if you were holding a hammer, like thumbs up. So for one thing it does is it powerfully rotates so that your palm's up. So that's one thing it does. It also flexes at the elbow, which is the common thing, and it also helps flex at the shoulder. So we've talked about before when we talked about stretching the muscle, that if you wanted to stretch it, you have to extend in all those areas. So for a bicep curl, I actually like just with dumbbells a standing curl where you twist, you flex at the elbow, and you flex a little bit at the shoulder. So you're getting the full range of motion of the bicep. So I think it's one of those things that...
so a twisting.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So really,
start
that's
in a hammer
how
curl position and then twist.
And then you twist as you curl, but also not only curling at the elbow, but also extending the shoulder up a little bit too. So you're really getting every piece of what the biceps does, you get with that movement if you do that little flexion at the shoulder. So I think that one little piece, though, you have to do as well. It's the supination, so you turn, palms up, you flex at the elbow and you flex at the shoulder, and then it allows you to do a little bit more weight. And if you can do it without swinging, great. So that's probably my favorite biceps exercise because it really does all the movements that the biceps really assists or produces.
Good one. My favorite is the concentration curl. Basically where you're not supporting your elbow, you're not putting it over the what's the thing where you put
the
your
preacher bench?
Yeah. Right, yeah. You're not doing that. You're not using your knee. You're not using any part of your body. Your elbow is basically hanging in the air.
What?
I'll show you, Ryan. So it's kind
of okay. So you're okay.
You're bent over, and so it's really using your bicep to really push all the weight. Now you have to be careful with that. You don't want to bend over and hurt your back, so you have to keep your back straight when you're bent over. But I just really like sort of the free form because you're really using your bicep to to lift that weight. You can't lift as much weight with it, but that's okay. I really had good results using the concentration curl.
Cool. What's your favorite triceps exercise?
I've never been a huge fan of doing triceps. I just never loved it because you do so many other exercises similar with biceps, but especially triceps. That's just one of my least favorite personally. So generally, when I do triceps, I like to do the cable pull down with the rope, where you extend and pull outward with it. I know it's a lot of people do that one, but that's just the one that I like to do. I feel I get a real good burn with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would actually agree with that. I think that's probably the best, gives you the most range of motion, best position to move a lot of weight. There are some others, like, there's 3 different heads of the triceps. They essentially all do the same thing with one head kind of working a little bit more at the shoulder, but to position yourself to kind of emphasize that, the benefits are minimal compared to what you could get out of like the push down with the rope. So I would say the push down with the rope kind of offers you the best balance of like position so that you can increase weights properly, but also kind of free range of motion. Like if you're doing like a skull crusher with a bar or something where you're lying back and you bend the elbows back, there's some restrictions in the wrist, so you have some limitations. Where I find that with the rope, the push down gives you enough, again, free range, but also positions you in a way that you can really move a lot of weight.
So the shoulders, what do you got for that?
So shoulders will break into 4 areas because the shoulders is, again, a dynamic muscle that consists of 3 heads that kind of, depending on what you're doing, are going to operate in completely different ways. So like you have the front part of your, let's say it's breaking into thirds. The front third is going to work on movements where you're extending forward. The middle third is going to work on movements so you extend laterally to the side. And then the back third is going to work on movements where you're kind of extending the shoulders. So let's say you start with your arms out, straight out to your sides. You're actually extending back, so behind you. So depending on which head you're trying to work, you're going to work different combinations or isolate different parts. So, and then you have your rotator cuff. So the rotator cuff then is 4 muscles that work on the joint. Essentially, the goal is to keep the shoulder joint is like a ball and socket joint. So they work to keep that ball in the socket, basically. So where the deltoid muscles are all kind of working to produce power movements, the rotator cuff muscles are there to make sure that things don't get that the ball doesn't fall out of the socket. So when it comes to the front part of the deltoid, there's not a lot. It assists in a lot of exercises. Again, when you work in your chest, lots of movements. But when you're doing a front raise, so you start with your arms hanging to your side and you extend the arm forward. That's probably the most common one too. The only thing with that is you want to make sure that your thumbs are up. So the common way people do it is palms down, right? Like if you do a front raise where you're standing, most people do it that way. But for many people, that little turn in the shoulder can create some issues in the joint. So some impingement that goes on in the joint. So the best way and the safest way to do it is actually to extend up with your thumbs up.
You're starting in hammer curl position.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And you just extend the arm forward, thumbs up. So again, this will be on the PDF. So you don't
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So that typically is be the safest. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it's if you want to do it the safest way, that's it. Because the other thing with the shoulder joint is there's a lot going on in that joint, and it's one of the more common injuries after lower back injuries. For me, you get back injuries are probably the most common. And I would say it's a tie between shoulder and knee injuries as far as what's depending, at least in my own experience.
You're playing.
You see a lot of
competitive sports that may involve contact or lots of different motions, like or stopping and starting, stuff like that.
And especially with weightlifting, you get a lot of poor form. So especially in the gym, people don't do as much with the legs, but they do a lot more upper body work. So you do some upper body work with bad form, and the shoulders are generally the area that's going to be damaged or first. So they have the side, the medial or the middle head of the deltoids, and that again just straightforward lateral raise. Now again, it's another exercise that actually I'm going to change that. We do an upright row, a standing upright row with a cable.
With a cable, okay.
Yes, I like lateral raises, but you do put yourself in a position to get injured. So basically, you don't need to extend too high up, and it is an exercise that where because it's like your arm's a lever, and so if it's extended fully out, it can create some issues. It's not, if you have shoulder problems, it can be problematic. If you don't, it's not a big deal. But the problem is, it's hard to progress the weights. Like there's kind of a limitation.
Once you get up to
it's at some point your weight.
Pounds,
most people are limited
pounds.
with the weight, and then if you go too heavy, you're really risking injuring yourself. So with an upright row, it's kind of a nice balance because you're essentially getting a lot of the same movement where you're laterally flexing the shoulder, but because you're able to bend the elbows as you do it, you don't have quite the same leverage, and because you're using both arms, you're able to get some assistance from other muscles. You're using the arms together, so overall, you're doing a lot of the same work, but you're not dealing with the same kind of risk for injury. So for me, that's probably the best for the lateral. For the lateral.
So now, why the cable instead of the bar?
Honestly, it just feels a little bit
your
better.
preference, okay.
You can change the angles a little bit too. So with the straight with a barbell, you're limited obviously by gravity. So when you're pulling, you've got one direction, straight up, straight down. With a so if you have any shoulder issues, sometimes with the cable, you can step back a little bit, and the angle that the cable is moving or the angle of the resistance is slightly different. So you might, just for some people, they may feel more comfortable with it straight down. They may feel more comfortable with it at a little bit of an angle. So you can make some adjustments easier with the cable than you can with dumbbells. And also, it's just easier to pick up and drop and change the weight. So I would go with that. Okay. Then the third is the lateral head, so extending backwards. So then, again, using a cable. So this one's a little bit tricky, so you don't want to go too heavy with it, but just with the cable, so you want to start with the cable. So your arm is basically, you start with the arm extended in front of you, and you're going to extend the arm out to the side. So you start with the arm in front, kind of, again, look at the pictures for this one, and then you extend out to the side. So you would start with the arm straight in front, and then you open up so your arms are kind of like a T shape. And with the cable. So you do that. You want to have it about the level of your shoulder. So the cable should be about shoulder level, and then you extend back. And that's a good way to isolate it. It's just, again, like anything with the shoulders, you don't really want to go too heavy unless you've really progressed to it and you have a real specific reason. But otherwise, like a reverse fly on the cable to be is the best thing for the rear head. And then for the rotator cuff. So a rotator cuff especially is more important that you're focused on the movements and not heavy weights. I see some of the most idiotic things is I'll see people doing rotator cuff exercises where they're like rotating but with heavy weight, and it's like you're just asking to get hurt. And so basic external rotation. So if you're lying on your side with your elbow bent at 90 degrees. So the thing is, we're a lot of movements require, so basically, like I said, the rotator cuff muscles, the main things they're doing is kind of, if you start with your arm bent at 90 degrees, right? And I ask you to rotate your arm, out to the side or rotate your arm in, you're basically rotating at the shoulder. So like kind of the bottom of the arm would stay parallel to the floor, and all you're doing is rotating the upper part of the arm to the side and forward. Again, it'll be in the pictures. So
I don't have much of a range of motion for that.
So now most exercises like bench pressing, like the pectoralis and the lats, they all work on internal rotation. So rotating internally, we're actually very powerful. We have a lot of strength turning internally. In fact, most people, when they stand naturally, their arms naturally rotate internally more than they should, because especially weightlifters, because we do everything's pushing and everything's lats, and we don't work on the upper back. We don't work on external rotation so much. So most people are kind of overcompensating with the internal rotation. So anything with external rotation is good to do just to kind of balance out what is a very common muscle imbalance, because everything we do is a lot of what we do naturally in everyday life and in weightlifting and in sports deals with muscles that are going to naturally kind of exacerbate that problem of internal rotation. So lying on your side with like a light weight and rotating to the side and really being focused on the rotation and the control is a great way to kind of compensate for the natural.
Why lying on your side? What about just sitting in a what if you're just sitting in
so here's the thing. So right, okay. So again, think about gravity. So if I want to rotate, so if we're standing up and I'm rotating side to side, there's no resistance, right? Like if you're standing and I'm rotating side to side, there's no resistance because the direction I'm moving is parallel to the floor, right? So gravity is going perpendicular to my arm
Even
at this
with a
point.
cable? If you have a
Now, if you have a cable, okay, you can do it with a cable.
Oh,
yeah.
I see what you're saying. With a dumbbell.
But with a dumbbell,
Oh, I see why. Because
Yeah.
you're doing it with a dumbbell.
yeah.
Okay.
So if you're standing upright, and even if you have a dumbbell in your hand, like the gravity is going
No,
down.
that won't work for a dumbbell,
So it's you're kind of like accelerating, and that requires power, but it's not the same as lying on your side where the gravity is going in that direction. So you're rotating against the resistance
Gotcha.
going that way. That's the issue some people do make though, is they do external rotation standing up, and it's like, okay, I get it, but you're not really doing much more than accelerating the weight and decelerating it. You're not actually really working against the weight. The best way to do that is either do it with a band or with cable, at light weight, or lying on your side with a dumbbell. So any of those are going to work.
Interesting. Well, my favorite shoulder exercise is the standing military press.
Shoulder, okay.
So
Why is that?
It's I feel like it's real powerful. I get good results for the my shoulders, the way they look cosmetically and also functionally. I feel it's a real good power exercise.
Yeah.
As well. I also like the rear deltoids.
Yeah.
Exercise. I do it with a cable, but I also sometimes the one time I like to use a machine where you have the two where you could use the fly, the reverse fly with the the machine that does it.
Okay.
I just feel I can control the weight really well.
Yeah.
I get a good burn, but I like to do it with the cables as well, standing.
Yeah.
Very similar.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I guess this almost connects to it in a way, but how about the upper back?
So the upper back, so again, the rear deltoids kind of, I consider that as part of the upper back.
Okay.
There are a bunch of muscles, rhomboids, teres major. There's the traps. So traps get overdone. Shrugs are done a lot.
I always thought that was more shoulders.
Yeah, well, no, traps are not. I mean, they can be
It sort of rides the line, yeah.
It rides the line. Depends if you're focused specifically on the muscles, or if you look at the shoulders as a region versus. So, like for example, when I talk about the upper back, I talk about it as a region that it combines a few different muscles, where the shoulders, so yeah, it depends on kind of how you're categorizing it. But the thing with the upper back is kind of like the rotator cuff. It's really important that your positioning, you have the right positioning for other exercises. And so my favorite move there is going to be basically kind of scapular retraction with weights. Basically all that is imagine if you take your arms in front of you and you push your arms forward and then reach forward as far as you can, and then you squeeze your shoulder blades together from there. That's kind of retraction. And so that movement is really important for a lot of exercises. And what happens is both during exercise and in everyday life, that the muscles that produce that movement are weak. So pull back, not up. So Justin's demonstrating it in front of me. Yeah, that's it.
Like
so
that?
So you kind of squeeze your shoulder blades together. So those muscles,
that's weird.
The muscles that produce that movement are generally fairly weak. So a lot of times when we do exercise, we don't even think about those muscles working. They end up not working. So that kind of, again, exacerbates other muscle imbalances. So that's a great exercise that kind of awakens those muscles, gets you used to that movement. And also there are a lot of movements like seated rows or like lat pull downs or like pull-ups that require retraction either before or during the movement. And if you're not doing the retraction, there are all kinds of issues that happen because of it.
I think that this, for everyone out there listening, we are going to do an episode in the next couple weeks on the most neglected muscles. And this is these
we haven't
will get
done
on
that?
the list. I don't not like what you're talking about right now.
we got to the point now where we have so many episodes that I'm like, I have to think sometimes. Wait, did we do that?
We definitely have done that, but not in this way
that
you're talking about.
So maybe we can do that. So scapular retraction to me, as far as the traps are concerned, because people are always like, I want to develop my traps. I tend to stay away from it unless there's a specific need, because there are a lot of exercises that work the traps. And I think for many people, they're kind of just overused and overdeveloped and overtense anyway. So I tend to focus on exercises that will maybe work the middle of the traps and work on kind of retraction versus like saying, okay, grab a couple heavy weights and do shrugs. If you're bodybuilding, all right, that's going to be necessary. But I think for the average person, I don't know that trap work is really necessary.
So I guess the lats would be considered the middle back, but what about the lower back? I don't know too much about that. I always thought that doing bent over rows, which is one of my favorite exercises, would work the lower back.
So the lower back obviously gives people plenty of problems. So it's part of the trunk. So like you have your trunk group, which is kind of comprised of a lot of the core muscles. That the purpose in a lot of situations is to keep you stable. So, for example, when you're doing a bent over row, you're not working, the movement's really mostly focused on the lats.
Sure.
But the lower back could get involved depending on your positioning. But it's more static. It's to keep you stable. So if you're specifically the lower back, I don't do a lot of, there are a lot of exercises that kind of indirectly work the lower back that are connected to other exercises or connected to core movements. But the one thing I do like to do it's pretty simple. You just imagine being on your hands and knees basically, and you just kick the leg straight back like you're going to kick someone behind you. Great exercise, very simple, and you're able to engage the erectus spinae and a lot of other smaller lower back muscles that all help you help strengthen it.
The erectus spinae.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say something like that. So anyway, you're able to engage it without too much stress or resistance. There are some other good exercises to do, but I like that as it's kind of not too heavy, not too intense. And then throughout other work with other exercises, you can get a lot of the lower back work. And, depending on the person, a lot of the lower back, it's about kind of correcting posture and correcting positions and increasing flexibility and some, a lot of other things that work around it. But I like that. It's like you're trying to kick somebody behind you.
Well, I guess the natural progression would be to talk about the abdominals. What's your favorite upper abs and lower abs exercise?
Favorite abdominal exercise. So let's say my favorite abdominal exercise would be probably a full body crunch if you're just working on that muscle. It just does everything. You get the full movements. Obviously, we've talked before about like there's no difference really between the upper and lower. But full body crunch is good because it just works the whole thing. You're working the whole unit. You're bringing your hips off the floor and you're curling at the same time. So you're just kind of getting the full range of motion for the rectus abdominis, which is the six pack muscle.
I love to do a crunch on the physio ball with a fairly light medicine ball. Okay. So I've always gotten a nice good burn from doing that.
And I mean, obviously with the abdominals, there's a million exercises. Sure. The other part is the obliques. So again, these are all part of the trunk. My favorite oblique exercise is just basic side plank. Okay. So, side planks are good because you can do them a lot of different ways. There are a lot of ways to modify them. There are a lot of ways to regress if you need to. But it's also one of those the exercise, I think it has like the highest activation rate of muscles for the obliques. So I always feel like that's the best, that's like the best kind of oblique focused exercise to me.
Okay, cool. All right, so now as we continue moving down the body, how about the glutes?
Glutes, the best... I almost have a two-part answer. Okay, I'm trying to stick with my one. I'm going to say single leg bridge. So if you want to kind of isolate the glutes, single leg bridge is great for that. So sometimes like a bridge on two legs can be, I don't want to say easy, but it is kind of easy to do for most people. But by just picking the leg up and doing it with one leg, if you do it right and you focus on the glutes. So basically you're lying on your back, your knees are bent, you elevate one leg off the floor so that it's not assisting, and then you drive through the heel, hips off the floor. Again, it'll be in the added to this episode, but that to me is the best exercise for the glutes because it really is you're able to isolate the glutes to an extent. It does get some assistance from the hamstrings and lower back if you're not focused or not doing it, or if the muscle gets tired or if there's weakness there. But to me, that's my favorite exercise for the glutes.
Okay, how about the abductors?
All right, so the abductors are the kind of, so I'd say for more the glute medius, which is kind of the side. It extends out to the side, so it allows you to extend your hips to the side. Gotcha. So my favorite thing for that is if you have like a TheraBand, what I have is this thing, it's called a lateral resistor. So basically a couple of straps that attach to your ankles and then bands that connect the straps. So if you kind of get into a squat, like a half a squat, and you stay there and you step side to side, it's a great exercise for activating the glute medius, which is a muscle in an area that's underworked. So a lot of times people work on like the inner thighs, especially for women. Like there's it's like a lot of women use the adductor machine where you bring the legs together, kind of working the inner thighs. But that's an area that generally is pretty strong for most people, or overused or overworked, where the opposite movement, the abduction or extension to the side, that tends to be underused and not quite as strong. So that and I like the lateral resistor as a movement to really get that working.
All right. How about those hamstrings?
You have way fewer opinions on the lower body exercises.
As far as the abductors, the only one I could think about was the that machine that you thought about where you extend the legs outward.
Yeah, the abductor.
I would use that one on occasion, but I don't know too much more.
Yeah,
about
but
that.
abduction is a really important movement that anybody should do. So if you have bands at your gym where you got to use that machine, definitely something that's important to do. So for the hamstrings, my favorite is a straight leg deadlift. I really really started to like that
Straight leg
exercise.
deadlift, okay.
Yeah, it's just you got to be careful a little bit with the positioning. So when you're doing a straight leg deadlift, I like it because of the hip hinging. It's a movement that we don't do a lot of in exercise, and it's a really valuable movement for sports and just for everyday life. So basically, you have the goal is to keep the back straight, legs straight. You shoot your hips back. You lower the weight to the floor. So it's almost like you're doing a standing hamstring stretch. And to me, it's a great exercise because not only does it get the glutes involved, the hamstrings, but it also gets a little bit of the glutes. You're really working on that hip hinging motion, and as long as you don't have any lower back problems and you do it with proper form, it's a really great, safe, and really good exercise for the hamstrings. And the hamstrings are also an area that you don't want to do too heavy weight, and you don't want to. For most people, it doesn't need to be overdeveloped. So it's a good exercise. It kind of works on the mobility, works on the flexibility, works on, it's great movement. So I really like the straight leg deadlift.
You know what exercise I really love, and unfortunately my gym right now doesn't have it, is the hack squat machine, I believe is what you call it. Basically, it's almost like the reverse of a leg press, where you put your legs on a, it's a flat surface, and the machine, and you sort of have the thing that you put your head between and you rest on your shoulders, almost like for the standing calf machine where you push up, only this is at a diagonal, and then you bend your knees, you put yourself down, and you extend, push back up, come down. It's actually quite difficult. You don't need that much weight on it to get a really good, really good couple sets in there.
Yeah. It's a good machine. I haven't used it in ages. Maybe 20
tough.
years.
It's hard.
Yeah, I guess that's all I can say.
Yeah.
About. I don't think I've seen a hack squat machine in a long time.
They had one at Life.
They did? Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, then the next one, I guess we go to the quadriceps.
Be the quads.
So my favorite. So again, this is an exercise that does a lot of different things. So I'm cheating a little bit because I was going to use this as my glute exercise, but the single leg squat is my favorite exercise. Again,
I knew you
could probably go with regular squats. They're pretty important and a pretty good
Yes.
exercise. But my favorite is
Really
I love the single leg squat because it works balance. It really works.
Sure.
Doesn't just work the quads, but it works the hamstrings. It works the glutes. It works movement. It works your proprioception. It does a lot of things in one exercise. So I really like that. And then it can be modified. You could do like a pistol squat. You could do lots of different things with it. That I think it's a really dynamic exercise. And if you don't do single leg squats, definitely try get to doing it. And it's cool because you can start with just touching your knee, then get all the way down to the point where you're touching the floor. So it's really, to me, one of the best overall exercises, and it sneaks ahead of the regular free weight squat for me a little bit.
Right. Well, yeah, I was gonna say the squat. Although actually, I'd mentioned this one in a sort of an exercise of the day. I'm a big fan of. I think you call it the soldier squat. Although we found a different exercise called the soldier squat, where it's a single leg squat. Only you have a kettlebell in your opposite arm, and you touch the floor with it, and you push back up.
Yeah.
So it's just a variation on it.
Yeah.
Gives a little bit of weight. It's just nice. I just like that exercise. Get a really good sort of burn and push on that leg.
Yeah. No. That's a good way to modify or progress with the single leg.
All right, so that's it. Those are all the muscle groups.
I guess so. There's not all the muscle groups. There's a ton more.
I'm sort of joking,
but I
because
think
we had one more on our list, and that was the calves.
Yeah, there's a lot more. We didn't go over there's a lot we're not going over, but I think these are the main ones that people work on. But yeah, then there are the calves. Calves again, kind of like the forearms and like the traps. They're areas that it's kind of part of a lot of other movements, so you don't need to overdo it. But and sometimes overdoing it can create problems.
We used to do calves. We used to spend lots of time doing calf raises and this.
But your calves are working all the time, so it's one of those things you don't need to do a lot. I like just actually on a stair, standing on stairs and just going through the full range. So you drop your heel down as far as you comfortably can, and you extend all the way up as far as you can to really work on the full range of motion of the muscle, and really working on the kind of mobility. The mobility of the joint is and the ability to kind of react. And especially if you're playing sports, being able to shift from mobility to stability quickly, that's more important to me than weight. Even we've talked before. I think even with like basketball players love working their calves because they think that that's going to be what's going to help them jump, and that's not really like there's a lot more going on with jumping than like your ability to generate power with the calves. So I think that's one area that's a little it's overdone. So I just say get on the stairs, and you can do with 2 legs, you can do with 1 leg, but just work on the full range of motion down and all the way up. You could do the same thing bent knee because you have the gastroc and the soleus. They work a little bit different. So if you do this toe raises with the knee bent, it works slightly different from doing the toe raises with the knee extended. But I'd say that's simple, easy exercise.
All right. So if you had to choose one full body exercise, I have a feeling we're going to be in agreement on this one. What would it be?
I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna pick 2 exercises for the full body. First one I'm gonna go with is Turkish Get Up with the kettlebell.
Oh yeah,
that's one of it's a great exercise. It just does everything. Really works on a lot of different things. Whether you're working the upper body, you're working the lower body, you're working on your core, you're working on driving the hips, you're working on balance, on proprioception, on stability. It just does so many different things in that one movement. Works almost every joint.
I heard that was actually the Bulgarian Get Up, but.
Whatever, you know what I mean. So I would say Turkish Get Up or Bulgarian Get Up. I don't know if you're making that up. Would be one full body and then 1A or 1 and 1A would be the deadlift too. Yeah. Deadlift's probably the as far as just an overall strength exercise, you can't really get much better than a where the Get Up does a lot. It's more dynamic. There's a lot more going on. Deadlift is pretty straight. You lift the bar up and you drop it, or put it back. So it's it's pretty linear, but it involves every muscle, and when you're doing it right, it really can help you get stronger. Yeah. But where I think the Get Up is a little bit more of a movement that it requires a full body, but it's also dynamic and it works on mobility and stability and strength and a lot of different things at once. Those would be 1 and 1A for me.
I would agree with you on both of them, really. On the deadlift for sure. I would put in, if you are able to do a clean and press, I mean, that's really covers a lot of ground from the very bottom all the way to pushing. Of course, that is a very, very advanced exercise. I cannot really do it properly. I cannot get the swing, the clean properly. So that's what's always prevented me from really doing it. I'd always love to be able to do that because that's quite an exercise too if you're able to execute it.
Yep, definitely agree with that. All right, well, so that's it. So if you have exercises that you think, definitely shoot us an email or post on our Facebook. Engage with us. Let us know what you think. What your favorite exercise if we missed something, or if you missed a body part that you think should be worked. Maybe you think that we really need to be focused on those forearms or whatever area.
I see people working the neck.
Or the neck. Yeah,
which is really weird and dangerous, but. There's some importance to it.
There's some research for like combat sports athletes. It certainly can be useful for certain combat sports.
Sure,
but
necessary too.
All right, well, we got an Ask the Trainer for today. So what do we have?
So this comes from Javier, and he says, "Hi Ryan and Justin, thanks for all of your help. In the last year, I have been on my own weight loss journey, and your podcast has served as motivation throughout. When I started, I had a goal of losing 60 pounds in the first 10 months. I've lost 50. For some reason, I just can't seem to drop the final 10 pounds, even though my habits have been the same. Does the body have some natural homeostasis that it wants to stay at regardless of how much a person exercises or diets? Thanks so much for your time and all of your help." And once again, thank you, Javier, for writing in, and thank you for the praises. It really makes us feel awesome.
Yes. So I would say... I guess a couple things that stand out there is that if you haven't changed, that might be the biggest thing, is maybe that further changes need to be made. But a couple things to think about. So most research there doesn't seem to be like your body doesn't have a set this is where you have to be. I think our habits tend to keep us within a certain range. Like for example, like I always say, like my body wants me to be at like 168 pounds. That's just where I am. But it's more my habits. When I'm eating what I normally eat and I go about my day and exercise where I normally exercise, I just tend to be in that range. That's where my weight is. 10 years ago, it was closer to 164, So it's like but the difference is, or the thing is that if I went a month where I was like really binging, then that weight would go up. And if I went time where I was not, that weight would go down. So it was more about my own personal habits than it was about, that the body has like this specific weight that you have to get to. And I don't think there just isn't any research to back up that idea that like there isn't much, at least what I could find that says like.
But there is your frame, your natural frame.
I mean,
some people are stockier, some people are lean and
Yeah,
tall.
well, you have a natural.
That's going to add.
You have
something
you have
to
a
weight,
natural
at least.
frame, and you have a predisposition to gaining weight or losing weight, or gaining muscle, losing muscle. So there's some variables that are just naturally there. I'm just saying that there's no like, it's not like you start cutting weight and then you get to a certain number and your body's just like, all right, we're done. So I think that's part. So now one thing to consider. So you lost a lot of weight, and that's great. That's awesome that you were able to drop 50 pounds over that time. You did it smart. It sounds. Assuming you lost 50 pounds over those first 10 months and not that you lost 50, because your problem is now getting those last 10. So a couple things to consider. I'm working on an episode where we'll get a little bit deeper into this, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. But one thing to consider is as you lose weight, right? So you have what's called your basal metabolic rate, which is the rate at which your body burns calories throughout the day. You have your resting metabolic rate, which is how many calories you burn at rest, and then your basal metabolic rate is what you would burn on a given day, right? So as you lose weight, your metabolic rate actually goes down because you're losing weight. So what happens is now your requirements for food go down. So if my metabolic rate, let's say, is 2,000 calories per day, and I start losing weight, it could drop to 1,600 calories per day. So while your everything in your life might be the same, you may be at a point where your body just requires fewer calories to get by. And so if you've reached that level where let's say you're still eating healthy, but you're eating a healthy 1,600 calories or 2,000 calories, then your body's you've reached kind of homeostasis between your energy expenditure and your energy output. So that's part one of it, is that as you lose weight, unfortunately, your body adapts by lowering its metabolic rate. So you may just be at a point where you're kind of your balance between your energy expenditure and your energy output. There are other variables that could come into play. If there's fast weight loss, there are definitely some hormonal changes, drops in testosterone and other things that could also possibly have an effect. There's insulin sensitivity also can potentially play a role. And again, that's why this is a larger subject that we'll get a little bit more in depth into at another time. But the first thing that you can try to look at is try to see, is your calorie intake basically, has that remained the same since you started the diet? And if that's the case, unfortunately, you've got two options, right? So if you're basically at the same output or input of calories as you were when you started, you either have to decrease the calories more, which it might not be reasonable. 1,600, again, I'm just throwing those numbers out. But for a lot of people, you get to a point where you just can't cut anymore. So you may get to a point where you just can't reasonably cut anymore. Then the other option is you've got to increase the exercise output. So you have to burn more calories. So those are really the options if it's just a matter of energy expenditure. The other thing to think of is, we say muscle burns more calories than fat. So maybe increasing your resistance training might help build some muscle, which can also maybe offset a little bit. So you start to, by adding the muscle, that can help potentially increase your metabolic rate because you have more muscle, which is going to require more calories to burn. So you're, having more muscle it will increase your metabolic rate. So that's another thing to consider. But those are some ideas thrown out there without knowing.
About that, when you mentioned the addition of muscle, now remember that could be weight as well. So Javier, just something to consider. You wanted to lose 60 pounds. With your exercise, did you do a lot of resistance training? Because it's possible that you put on muscle mass, which is the sort of mass that you want to put on. You want to put on that weight I guess so. I'm assuming when you say you want to lose 60 pounds, you wanted to lose 60 pounds of fat, right? Because there is weight that is in water, there's weight in muscle, and there's weight in fat. Generally, we want to lose the fat. So, Javier, a sort of weird way of looking at it is also look at the mirror. Now, I know that you wanted to lose this weight and that was your goal, but perhaps you're very happy with how you look, or maybe you still want to look better, right? You're still not happy. You still have too much body fat. So in that case, maybe what Ryan said, adding more resistance training, adding maybe some more muscle mass, or if all you've been doing is lifting weights, maybe make a change to an interval program or something. Doing an exercise change might help and might sort of kickstart everything again. Maybe you can lose those last little bits of fat. And it's sometimes hard if your body is meant to be a certain way. I know that you say that it's not, but I think that once you've pushed really low, if you've gotten rid of a lot of fat, it's really hard to get rid of that last bit. So maybe doing the exercise change. Of course, there are instances where if you want to lose that bit of fat and you've really done everything you can exercise, you just might have to really cut down on calories, which it may not be practical in the sense of things, which is that's almost bordering on what professional athletes or models or bodybuilders or what they do. So I guess take all those things into consideration. Let us know what your results are, Javier, if you continue going in any of those directions, and I hope this was of help to you, and we'd love to hear what your results are moving forward.
Yeah, so
congratulations on losing 50 pounds. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
and hopefully you will listen to what we said on the whole maintenance thing, and continue to try to lose or get yourself in better shape. There's also something to think about once you've lost the weight with maintenance, is then trying to just put yourself in better physical condition without actually worrying about losing more weight, just either becoming a better athlete or becoming stronger. And I think that just also has many added benefits.
Yeah, we've come full circle, actually. We talked about maintenance in the beginning. The GymWits making the world fitter, one ear hole at a time.
Yes.
All right, so hope that helps. And again, keep your questions coming. We got a bunch, and the more the better. So if, as usual, check out thegymwits.com for all of our information. If you have the app, definitely today's the time to download it if you have an iPhone or Android, because we will add these exercises, because I know trying to describe it's hard enough to demonstrate in front of people. So trying to describe it off the top of my head, not that I'm not, I don't know what I'm doing when I'm cueing or describing, but like I didn't think, okay, how would I describe it for listeners to get it? So I know that a lot of this probably won't make sense, because some of it wasn't making sense to Justin. I was showing him. So definitely, download the app, rate us if you haven't yet, and
spread the word. And
that's it. I am Ryan, and if you're, I'm arriving. If you have any cool tips for what I should do in Barcelona or Lisbon, since this is going to be posting when I arrive in Lisbon, please send it your way. Any good food? We have most of our plans for like the time, but if you have good food in either of those places that you think I must try, definitely shoot us an email at thegymwits.com. All right, that's it. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits.